Hey, what is going on, you dishonorable ditto? That's right, Miraidon EX might not be dead quite yet, but before I jump into it and break it all down, gotta give a big shout out to Dragon Shield, as always, for sponsoring me as a PokemonTCG player and content creator in this space. Of course, I love them for their sleeves, and they just came out with some new colors. They got the Amber Orange and the Amethyst Purple. So if you're looking for some new sleeves to sleeve your deck up in, check them out. They're both matte builds, which is my personal favorite of sleeves from Dragon Shield. I love the matte Dragon Shields. Check them out, dragonshield.com. Link, of course, will be in the description, and code AzulGG will get you a discount over there as well. So Miraidon, we all know it, we all love it. It's got the tandem unit, the Photon Blaster. It's a pretty solid Pokemon by itself, but it's not enough. It's definitely not enough. It definitely needs more to go with it. And its partners in the past have been the Iron Hands and the Raikou V and Raichu V. And Force Shield Stone has always been a pretty big card in this deck as well. And those have all rotated. So Miraidon's friends are few, very few. So few that we have a Magnezone EX in here, but I'll talk about that in a second. So of course we still have our two Miraidon, and Iron Hands really needs to carry us now without having the big one-hit KO potential from the Raichu like we had in the past. Iron Hands has to do most of the heavy lifting, not all of it. Miraidon is still decent. The Photon Blaster are still very, very good at taking big knockouts on stuff like Pheasantipity and Ogre Ponds and stuff like that, so it can still get the job done. But Iron Hands is definitely king now that we have lost our Raichu and our Raikou. One card that I don't have in here right now that I'll share with you all real quick is the Coco EX. Now this can kind of replace Raikou in the way that we usually like having some kind of early game attacker to more efficiently be able to attack with on the first turn, just to try and get that first knockout on that first turn going second. And that's what the Tapu Koko EX is super, super good at, is because it only takes 2 energy to attack. It takes a lightning and a colorless to do 60 damage plus 20 more for each of our benched Pokemon. So we can be hitting for 160 damage on that first turn, which is more than enough to KO stuff like Dreepies and Duskulls and stuff like that, like low HP Pokemon. And if we did ever switch over to an Area 0 build of Miraidon, which I think there is still some potential for as well, then we could even actually be hitting for 220 damage if we get a full bench on our first turn, which honestly, that's pretty solid. 220, that is KOing stuff like the Pheasantipity, like the Ogre Ponds. We're getting through most things that our opponent could push up turn 1 to try and make it hard for us to get a KO. So I don't have the Coco in here right now, but I think there's potential for it. Other things that I think there's potential for is I think there's potential for an Area 0 build of Miraidon. I want to stick with the Prime Catcher for right now because Hands is so important, and Prime Catcher is like a really big deal for Iron Hands to be able to consistently attack with it turn to turn. Pulling off those Ampy very much is for 2 prize cards or even more. Prime Catcher is a pretty big deal to combo with Iron Hands. So like I said, I'll probably be trying Area 0 as well with Miraidon still. And another way to play Miraidon that I'm very interested in trying as well is the Pikachu EX Sparkling Crystal build that I initially saw Sage and Park kind of playing with and popularizing. There might be something there as well, so that's something to try out for sure. That one I need to definitely tinker around with a little bit more. But I'll be coming at you with more Miraidon builds, whether it be before the set drops next week or after it drops. More Miraidon builds will be on the way eventually. But let's finish talking about this one. It's all about the Iron Hands. We need to be amping very much, very often. So we've brought back in the Heavy Baton, which is a card that has been played in Miraidon in the past. And if the card this Pokemon is attached to has 4 retreat cost and is in the active spot and is KO'd by damage from an opponent's attack, we can move 3 basic energy from that Pokemon to one of our other Pokemon. So it makes it really easy to be able to chain Iron Hands. So we can go attack with Iron Hands, Heavy Baton triggers from one Iron Hands to the next Iron Hands. We attack with the next Iron Hands, repeat. Pretty good, right? Besides that, we have the usual suspects for the support Pokemon. We have the Iron Bundle, a Squawkabilly, a Pheasantipity, a Mew, a Ursaluna. One big card that also got rotated that was pretty impactful in Miraidon, I feel like, was Heavy Ball. That's gone now, so we don't have that to work with anymore, and definitely makes me consider... Oh, another big card, actually, at the end of Miraidon's lifespan, a big card in Miraidon was definitely that Rotom V, which, honestly, I probably didn't give enough credit in earlier versions of Miraidon, like around Worlds last year. I kind of wrote off the Rotom V, but it was probably pretty good back then as well. So with that in mind, with Rotom V not being around, with Heavy Ball not being around, second Squawkabilly is definitely something that's on my mind as a potential inclusion. Besides that, though, we definitely need to go to a 2/2 Magneton. With the lack of Forest Sealstone mainly, that was one of our big explosive cards that we could utilize on the first turn of the game to find many generators to be able to utilize to pull off big turn 1 attacks. Now it's a lot harder to get off like a turn 1 Ampy very much. Not only do we not have Forest Sealstone, we don't have double turbo energy either. So it's gonna be a lot harder to pull off those big explosive turn 1 attacks. But I think now we want to be taking a little bit of slower of an approach, and we want to be going first and following up with like a turn 2 Magneton plus attacker combo to be able to pull off that turn 2 Amp You Very Much, or maybe even a Photon Blaster, kind of depends on what we're up against. So I think we're going to be choosing first pretty consistently with this deck now moving forward, playing for the turn 2 Magneton, which shouldn't be too hard to pull off. Another reason a second Squawk ability would be nice is to guarantee we have it on that first turn, or increase our odds of having it on that first turn, so that way you can actually get energy in the discard pile and see enough cards to pull off a turn 2 Magneton. But yeah, Magneton is super important right now. We have less outs to Generator because 4 Seal Stone's gone, and we need more energy in play to pull off our big attacks. Like having Raikou is no longer a thing that easy 2 energy attacker that can hit really hard. Of course, I could put the Coco back in, but Coco's not quite as good as Raikou because Raikou also counted their bench. And then also, we don't have Raichu. So even if we get a ton of energy in play, we don't have like a big one-hit KO. So consistently having hands turn to turn, throwing them up there, amping very much, super, super important. I do have the Ursaluna still in here for some late game closing. Specifically, I think this is going to still be very important for the Golden Go matchup. Ursaluna plus the Defiance Band can get us a 1-hit KO on a Golden Go in the late game. After we've popped Magneton, they'll be at 1 prize card. We will be at more than 1 prize card. We do need to still find 4 prize cards before that happens, though. And that might be the tricky part. Got some more tool cards in here still. The Defiance Band, still have a Bravery Charm, Rescue Board, of course, the Heavy Baton. I don't have Latias in here, and the main reason is because Latias kind of messes with Heavy Baton. If you have Latias in play and a Heavy Baton on your Iron Hands, and your Iron Hands gets KO'd, the Heavy Baton does not trigger, because it has to have exactly 4 retreat cost. But if you have Latias in play, you have 0 retreat cost. 0 is not 4. You get the point. 3 Boss's Orders, still have the Counter Catcher, the Prime Catcher, like I mentioned. 4 Ultra Ball, 4 Nest Ball. Gotta find the Magneton. And I've got some switches in here. Switch cart did rotate, so we're going with the switches instead for our mobility to move stuff around. Super Rod for a little bit of recovery. And then finally, this Magnezone EX, which I'm sure some of you are curious about the reason to include this card, and the reason is walls. Walls are really good, walls are really annoying, and the specific wall that I'm talking about is that Farigiraf EX, which says basic EX Pokemon can't hit it. That's annoying, and unlike Mimikyu that Miraidon's had to deal with in the past, where we could just attack with Mew using genome hacking to copy Mimikyu's attack to hit the Mimikyu, as long as they don't have a missed energy, we could deal 70 damage to it, and potentially KO it if they don't have a Bravery Charm or a Luxurious Cape. For Farigiraf's attack, I think it does like 160 and then 30 to a bench Pokemon. It doesn't have like a shred effect or like a place damage cards effect. So we can't use Mew to copy Farigiraf. It just wouldn't do anything. But we could evolve our Magneton, our Magnemite into Magneton, into Magnezone, and then Magnezone can hit him with that Pulse Launcher for 220 damage and 2-hit KO the Farigiraf. So that is why we've got the Magnezone EX in here. And honestly, it's a Pokemon with a lot of HP. Deals a decent amount of damage. Energy Crush, 50 damage for each energy attached to all of your opponent's Pokemon. That's pretty bad, but besides that, we kind of need an answer to every deck. Basically, when I was building decks the other day on stream, every deck had to play an answer to walls. It was like, you either need to be able to deal with Cornerstone, or with this deck, you need to be able to deal with Farigiraf. Like, there's just always something every deck has to deal with. And that's the answer I came up with so far, because it just fits nicely in here, because we can just evolve it up through our Magneton line. And that's it. That's my first take on Miraidon in the Journey Together format. It definitely lost a lot of power, but so did a lot of other decks. So will it be able to keep up with everything else going on in the format? I don't know. We're gonna have to wait and see and find out, and maybe, but maybe not. Who knows? But yeah, there's some other builds to definitely try with this. Like I said, Area Zero seems pretty cool, as well as the Pikachu build. The Pikachu build also seems pretty good. So I'll definitely be coming at y'all with those builds as well at some point in the future, and I'll catch y'all in the next one.